One of the things that CIA teaches us very early in our training is that there's 4 different motivations. The 4 motivations break down into an acronym RICE, RICE. They stand for reward, ideology, coercion, and ego. When you talk about that religious power, that drive that comes from your spirituality, you're hitting on the strongest of the 4 motivations.
Yeah, I think, like everybody has their lens that they look through the world at. I like to look at things by someone who's believes I was created, and I believe that there's a very intentional plan for the world. I believe God's hand's providential. I like to look at the world through a biblical worldview. It gives me hope, and it makes me see things in a more optimistic way.
Well, what's beautiful is it's not just you, right? That's your personal experience.
Yeah.
But when you apply that biblical worldview to anybody, it can give anybody hope. It can give anyone structure.
Yeah.
It can give anyone validation, right? We're not the first ones to struggle through this world. It's a fallen world.
Yeah.
It's a struggle. That's what it's going to be until the day we die. It's a struggle until it's not a struggle anymore.
Yeah. A lot of our adversaries in the world, or particularly people of faith, maybe not the same faith as me. However, it is a factor.
Yeah.
Like when you look at the jihadist movement and you look at people like in Germany right now calling for a caliphate. These are people that see the world through a lens of faith and spirituality. And if you're not, as someone who's going to be resilient, if you're not looking through a faith lens and your adversary is, you're missing like a very important angle. Like we're better than them in every area except their spiritual resiliency. As flawed as it may be, they were fighting with the spiritual resiliency, seeing life eternal, and they fought that way, and that gave them an edge. That's why ultimately, they're still there.
One of the things that CIA teaches us very early in our training is that there's 4 different motivations, right? And that the 4 motivations break down into an acronym RICE, RICE. They stand for reward, ideology, coercion, and ego. But when you talk about that religious power, that drive that comes from your spirituality, you're hitting on the strongest of the 4 motivations,
right,
ideology.
The RICE acronym doesn't put them in priority, right?
Correct.
If you reprioritize them, the ideology comes first.
Bingo. And that's what's so powerful, right? Why is Israel as powerful as it is? Because it's a religious country. They don't separate church and state, right? They are, at their core, a theocracy, right? Why is Iran such a viable enemy? Because they are a religious country. Why are Israel and Iran at war right now? Because it's literally 2 religious-driven spiritual arguments that have lasted centuries, right? And that's the Taliban is the same way. ISIS was the same way. I mean, when you think about a true conflict, the stronger ideology wins. Why did the Americans win the American Revolution? Because we were fighting for independence. All the British were fighting for were extra taxes. Right? You can't. There's no competition there.
Motivation's not there, especially on the ground troops, right?
Exactly.
Not there.
Right. Someone's got to pick up the musket. Someone's got to pick up the knife. Someone's got to wear the bomb. That's the person who's got the stronger ideology.
Yeah. Oh, while we're there, I think it's interesting the RICE acronym when you prioritize it, right? Ideology is first, but ego is second.
Exactly.
Ego is a powerful factor.
And what's fascinating to me is, I always thought ego was a bad thing, right? Before CIA, I was like, oh, ego's a bad thing. Don't have an ego. Don't trust people who have an ego. Egotism is a problem. Ego is much more than just being egotistical.
Yeah.
Right. Egotistical means that you think your ego is more important than anybody else's. Like you are more important. Ego just means how you craft the way the world views you. Every one of us has an ego. Mother Teresa had an ego. She wanted the world to see her sacrifice. She wanted the world to see her the way that she subjected herself to the poor and the needy. She wanted the world to see that because she had a message, an ideology that was driving and shaping her ego. Well, the same thing's true for any politician, any celebrity, anything else. They're just shaping a narrative around themselves. That's all your ego is, whether it's a ego that you're proud of or whether it's an ego that that society accepts. But nevertheless, it's a powerful motivator. If I validate the ego that you're trying to build, if I compliment your beautiful blue eyes, that makes you feel good.
I feel handsome right now. Well, I think it's interesting in the acronym as you prioritize it is that the last one or the least influenceable is coercion.
It's coercion.
Yeah, and we think that we can force people into things. And I mean, I know like a lot of guys that are human side are going in and working sources and developing sources. You think that you could actually coerce someone in, but that's the last like viable option.
It's the least resilient, the least consistent, the least reliable, because once you force someone to take action, once you guilt or shame or humiliate or force someone into a decision, they'll never trust you again. Yeah. It's so much more powerful to get someone to do something they already want to do, or get someone to do something they believe is in line with their ideology, because they'll do it over and over and over again, right? They're malleable, or what many people would call manipulatable, right? Once you force somebody at gunpoint to say something or write something down, they will never let you do that to them again.
Yeah, it's kind of like marriage, right? You say your wife or husband will never like force you to become the wife or husband they want to be. You can't force that. I think reward too is something that as Americans we lose sight of. I remember when they put when I was out on that JSOC task force and we were looking for bin Laden, and they had the $25 million reward out, and I said, man, somebody's going to turn him in at first. And then once I got to realize who the Afghan people were, I'm like, these people don't care about $25 million. So they could light a fire with it. Like,
do they even believe that it's real?
Yeah.
If you put a $25 million bounty on someone's head in the United States, most Americans would look at that and say, that's not real.
Yeah.
First of all, $25 million isn't real. No one's going to give me $25 million. Even if I do turn this guy in, the $25 million is going to be spread out over 30 years of payments where I always have to pay 35% taxes. Like, there's going to be some catch.
Right.
And it's definitely not worth me risking my life to turn in this other person, right? So if that's how an American would think, I mean, come on.
Yeah, that's why I know I turned him in. No, I mean, in all those years, no one ratted him out.